Today I'm showing you 3 of my favourite ways to cook vegetables in the air fryer for perfect flavour and texture. Often air fried vegetables can turn out burnt, dry or just unevenly cooked, but with these recipes you won't have any of those problems. I'll be using the Cosori Turbo Tower air fryer today to cook these delicious recipes, and they are today's video sponsor. So let's get on with the cooking, starting with cauliflower, which is one of those vegetables that if cooked wrong can be incredibly bland, but this crispy Hoisin cauliflower is anything but that. Okay, so first things first, let's prepare the cauliflower. Now, if you've got a really nice fresh cauliflower like I have here, you can definitely keep the leaves, and you can use them in a stir fry, you could use them in a slaw, you can roast them and then dip them in hummus. That's really nice. You've got lots of options to use the cauliflower leaves. You definitely don't want to throw them away, and I'll keep them for another dish. So to prepare the cauliflower without making an absolute mess, flip it over and we're going to cut through the stems rather than going through the florets, which will just sort of break apart and crumble everywhere. It's pretty much impossible not to have a little bit of sort of cauliflower mess, but you can avoid it mostly. As well as the leaves, you can keep the core of the cauliflower for a nice slaw, or you can thinly slice it and put it in a stir fry. We're going for nice bite-sized chunks of cauliflower, about this size. So when you have a piece which is slightly too large, just cut through the stem, about a couple of centimeters, and then you can literally just tear it apart and you won't have any mess. And now you've got 2 nice small florets. And we'll just repeat for the rest of the cauliflower. Sometimes you'll sort of naturally see there's a small floret coming and you can just simply break it off like so. You want them roughly the same size so that they cook evenly as well. We'll start by making a quick batter with arrowroot powder and water, and this is going to help the breadcrumbs stick. So just whisk them together into a smooth paste. Before we breadcrumb the cauliflower, I'm giving the basket a quick spray. I've just got like an olive oil spray here. Generally stuff doesn't stick, but just in case it's worth doing it. You could also use baking paper. This batter's looking good. You could also use cornflour or just plain flour if you wanted to. I found arrowroot gets it really nice and crispy. So really simply, we'll just go into the batter. I'm going to be using my left hand as my wet hand. Let the batter drip off, and then straight into the breadcrumbs. And I'll switch to my right hand, which is going to be my dry hand, to get it really nice and coated. I'm not adding any seasoning to this. You could if you wanted to. The glaze is where we'll get most of the flavor in. And then straight onto the air fryer basket. And then just repeat for all your florets. These are ready for the air fryer now. I'm gonna spray them again with some oil. Quite a generous spraying. Just wipe off any excess from the sides. And we'll air fry the cauliflower at 190 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so the cauliflower is starting to get golden and crispy, so we're just going to turn over the pieces so that they cook nice and evenly. If you don't have chef hands, then maybe use tongs. And then back into the air fryer. While the cauliflower is getting nice and crispy, we'll make the hoisin glaze, which of course starts with some hoisin sauce. This is a shop-bought one, but I have a recipe for a homemade one. I'll link the video for that. Then I'm going to add some light soy sauce, a touch of toasted sesame oil, some water. I'm then just going to zest it in some fresh ginger for a nice bit of fiery, fragrant kick. Definitely get yourself a good zester. It's such a useful tool in the kitchen. My favorite brand is called Microplane. And then lastly, just a touch of cornflour. And I'm not sure why I put this in a bowl. We're actually going to heat it up. So just add that into a small saucepan or frying pan. The cauliflower gets beautifully crispy and golden thanks to the air fryer having the heating element and the fan at the top, ensuring you get lovely even and crisp cooking. So we'll just heat up that hoisin glaze until it's nice and sticky. Just decided I'm going to add some lime juice as well for a nice bit of freshness. And then once the glaze is nicely thickened, you can pour it over your cauliflower. And then just give that a quick toss to coat it. Or you can use a spoon or spatula. Give it a really good toss or stir as you want it to get into all the crevices of the cauliflower. And I like to finish it just with a little bit of fresh chopped coriander. Keep it really nice and simple. Or cilantro for the Americans. And that is a delicious way to enjoy your cauliflower. Definitely a bit of a treat because we are breadcrumbing it and it's quite a sweet glaze. but it's totally worth it. You can also switch up the glaze for something different, like a sweet and sour one, or a curried glaze, for example. This cauliflower is honestly next level. The outside is crunchy and slightly chewy. Then you go into the sweet and tangy glaze. And finally, the cauliflower has a nice bite still, slightly al dente, really delicious. The only problem with this dish is that if you try cauliflower any other way, you'll be disappointed that you're not eating this. Really difficult to stop eating. Now my girlfriend loves a clean and organized kitchen, so when we found out that this air fryer fits perfectly under the shelves on the countertop, we knew it was going to be a keeper. I see a lot of squash recipes pairing it with a sweet glaze using maple syrup or honey, but squash is already naturally sweet. So instead, try pairing it with some earthy spices and this mint and coriander chutney. We'll start this dish by making a lovely spice mix from Bangladesh, and it's called Panch Poran. It includes fennel seeds, cumin seeds. If you want, you can use pre-ground spices, that's absolutely fine. Typically brown mustard seeds, but I'm just going to be using yellow here. Then we've got nigella seeds or black onion seeds. And then I couldn't get whole fenugreek, so we've just got some ground here. So just get your spices over a sort of medium-low heat. We'll toast these until they start to release their aromatic flavor and essential oils. And they'll just slightly color and the mustard seeds will start to pop. Give it a quick toss every now and again to make sure it's toasting evenly. And then once the mustard seeds are popping, you can empty it out into a pestle and mortar or into a spice grinder. You don't want to leave it in the pan or else it will continue to cook and probably burn. And then we'll just grind these spices into a rough powder. I like to keep my hand over the mortar as that stops the spices from sort of bouncing out, especially when doing the sort of bashing technique. And then once you've got it started, you can use the muddling technique where you just push down and around the pestle and mortar. I like to not completely grind it down and leave a little bit of texture left, so you get sort of little pops of spice in there. It doesn't take any time at all, and if you could smell the aroma right now, you would definitely agree that it's worth it. We'll just add in the ground fenugreek now as well. Now that we've got the spice blend prepped, we can get on with our squash. I've got a red curry squash here, sometimes called a red onion squash. But you can use any squash, ideally one with an edible skin. For example, butternut squash or delicata are both quite good varieties. The skin is nice and soft on them. And then just scoop out those seeds, really nice and easy. Just get yourself a spoon. Whenever cutting any vegetable, you want to make it nice and stable. For example, cutting it this way wouldn't be stable, but if we turn it on its flat side, that's going to be much safer. Also, make sure your knife is really sharp. So I'm cutting this squash into wedges because we're going to be dipping this squash into a really lovely mint and coriander chutney. So we've got these lovely half moon wedges which we can dip in. There's also lots of surface area here for the squash to get lovely and caramelized. To season the squash, I like to get it into a large tray. I'm then going to add a generous amount of olive oil. This is going to stop the squash from drying out in the air fryer, which can be a common problem with air frying vegetables. And then get in there with your hands and give it a good old mix up. So every piece is nicely coated. And then we'll get our seasoning mix and we're going to sprinkle it on from a height. This ensures that you get a really nice even covering. Then go in with your hands again and give it a good toss about. You can add as little or as much of the spice mix as you like. We'll just go in with it all. An important part of roasting veg is making sure you keep the vegetables separate so that they roast and caramelize rather than steam. I'm making use of the 2 drawers with a total capacity of 10.8 liters to ensure I get lovely roasted vegetables. And then you can just space these out into the air fryer, making sure you've got space between each piece of squash, which is kind of like a fun little game, a little bit of a puzzle. You just want a nice sort of circulation of the hot air going around the squash. And we're using the crisper basket for this as well. I'm going to make use of both baskets here as I'm cooking a whole squash. I'm going to air fry this at a fairly low temperature as I don't want the spice mix to burn, but we still do want some caramelization. And I'm going to make use of the match function so that they cook at the same temperature and time. Start on 170 and check at 15 minutes. So while the squash cooks, we're going to make a quick mint and coriander chutney. So to a jug, I'm just going to add the fresh coriander. I'm going to be using a hand blender, but you could do it in a food processor or a blender for a smoother sauce. And to that, I'm adding about 1/4 of a small red onion, about half a red chili. You can leave this out if you don't want chili, or add more even if you like it spicy. A touch of cumin adds a nice earthiness, and some lime juice for a nice bit of acidity, and just the flavor of the lime, of course. I'd usually just do lime juice, but I've got half a lemon in the fridge that needs using, so I'm going to use that as well. Little bit of water to help it blend, and then just a pinch of sugar to balance out the acidity and spice. A couple of pinches, and then just get in there with your hand blender and give it a good blend. And as always, make sure to give it a taste before you serve it. Oh, that's so good. Certainly got a kick to it. Now it's not the prettiest color because the mint can be quite earthy, but it is so delicious. And now the squash is beautifully tender and caramelized. I can smell those spices on it. Very excited to dig into this. Oh, that's good. That is really good. Oh, gorgeous. You've got beautifully caramelized squash, and then in come those fragrant spices that we coated it in. The mint and coriander chutney, it's fresh and vibrant, and it just helps cut through the sweetness of the squash. I hated aubergine for so many years of my life, but it turned out I just never had it cooked properly. Often it's undercooked, but when cooked properly, it becomes sweet, soft, and it absorbs flavors like a sponge. This recipe is incredibly simple. We're just going to remove the top and bottom of the aubergine, trying to take off as little as possible. Actually, the bottom we can just leave, or eggplant for Americans. And we're just going to cut it into fairly large chunks. And don't worry if the pieces aren't completely even. A few smaller bits and larger bits is all good. And then just get your aubergine into a bowl. We'll season it simply for now, just with some oil, salt and pepper, and then we'll make an amazing miso and toasted sesame glaze. So just oil, salt, good amount of salt because it can take a lot of seasoning, aubergine, and pepper. I like to go fairly heavy on the pepper with this dish. And then just give that a massage and get it all nice and coated in the seasoning. I'm going to take the crisper tray out for this recipe and then add in the aubergine. So we'll air fry this at around 190 for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now I have a very cute puppy called Poppy, but there's one thing I don't want to do, and that is wake her up when she's sleeping. Fortunately, the Turbo Tower air fryer has a high-speed DC motor and smart airflow, which ensures faster and quieter cooking. So while that aubergine gets lovely and golden, we're going to make the glaze, starting with some red miso, then some light soy sauce, rice wine vinegar or lime juice, a little maple syrup so it's nice and sticky. Then I'm going to zest in one quite large garlic clove. It's going to give it a really punchy flavor. And I'm also going to add some sesame seeds. These are untoasted. If you can get toasted, that would be really nice. And then give that a good whisk so it's all well combined. Especially the miso, you really want to break that down. Okay, that's nice and smooth, and I think the aubergine is just about ready. So really simply, just pour over your glaze or sauce, and then just mix it all around so that all the aubergine has some of that sauce on. We'll return that to the air fryer until it's lovely and sticky. And there you have the most beautiful, sticky glazed aubergine. Really delicious. Make sure you get all that glaze out. And then the toasted sesame oil I add on last, just because you don't really want to cook with it. And I've just mixed it with some lime juice and coriander to make a really nice sort of dressing for this aubergine. And that will help cut through the sweetness of the glaze. Really nice. That is super tasty. Well, I've just eaten about half a bowl of this aubergine, so there's a good sign that it is really tasty. The aubergine is soft and juicy on the inside and then caramelized on the outside. It's sweet, it's salty, umami, and then it's got that lovely toasted flavor from the sesame oil. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to try out some of those recipes And if you're interested in getting yourself an air fryer, there'll be a link in the comment section and the description box. And I'll see you in a new video very soon. Bye bye.